1887 in Philadelphia, and they agreed on having the presidential system of government, or the federal system of government, on separation of powers between the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. And they also agreed that there will be what we call judicial review of executive actions. The reason they have stayed together with only 20 since that time, a constitution that is just 7,591 words, is because they owned it. It was a document. They agreed to it at the time of the event out of 50 people's representatives signed it, and it was subjected to referendum of the American people. But our own constitution was given to us by military dictats, and nobody believes in it. No Nigerian believes in it. So everyone is like everyone to that extent, oh Israel. I think this is the time and opportunity we have now to reclaim our lost destiny. We are going without a compass. Any journey without a compass, you will be lost. It is unfortunate when as I stand here, I feel that this is the first time I'm coming out for a national conversation like this. I was at the 2005 National Political Conference. I was at the Vision 2020-2009. I was at the 2014 National Conference. And here we come today again. The reason being that we have not got it right. Let us not deceive ourselves. You cannot cure a major cancerous sore with a mere balm meant for eczema. A new constitution is the way to go. Like Naaman the leper, this is the time for Nigeria to dip our constitutional problems into River Jordan so that we can be released of our leprosy. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, It's Professor. Then we can go to the next item, which is most suitable system of government for Nigeria, presidential or parliamentary system. And I've got here Barrister Trolevich.
Mr. Chairman, Your Excellency, because of my time, there are jobs and protocols already established. I've been giving a topic that is very difficult for you, and it just asked me directly the most suitable system of government for Nigeria, presidential or parliamentary or mixture of both. Nobody has asked me whether both presidential, parliamentary, or the mixture of them is not suitable for Nigeria. What I'm going to say, therefore, is my own idea of what I think is suitable for Nigeria, notwithstanding the fact that we have even practiced both parliamentary and presidential. Parliamentary was overthrown by the military because it was not suitable. Presidential have been wobbling since we started in 1999. For those who want to offer the preaching system of parliamentary system of government, I don't think there's anywhere in the world, particularly in Africa, where that is copied and is being implemented. To be able to do that in Nigeria, It is a system that is founded upon suitable political parties that evolve from among the people as part of their convention or as part of their constitution. In Nigeria, parliamentary system is a rule of the political party. It is a political party with the majority in parliament that form government. We do not have that kind of political party in Nigeria. It is PDP every day. It's like a combination of PDP, APC, NRC, and ADC. That is the kind of constitution, that is the kind of political party you expect to determine the future of Nigeria. Under that kind of system too, you do not need to leave your enclave to become the leader of Nigeria. The Baba did not need to know where I come from. If you just the representative of his constituency in Bauchi State. In fact, the leader of the party, Ahmadu Bello, did not even care to come and lead at the center. He prefers to be the president of Northern Nigeria. Before you know it, the political party came. NPC did not have to campaign anywhere in the country, and he would invariably have a leader that kind of political party will produce. I do not think is the best for Nigeria. The only campaign against presidential system of government is that it is expensive. Of course, it is expensive. The kind of presidential system of government in America is expensive. But once we make it expensive, my own view is that Nigeria is a pluralistic society. Therefore, we need a leader that commands national legitimacy. It is not a leader that comes from any corner. That leader must be able to go around the country. He must have the national mandate of the Nigerian people to be able to speak legitimately as a leader of Nigeria people. It is not the kind of having, of course, call it whatever amount, compare the cost of that or the cost of not having a stable politics. A polity like Nigeria, someone was talking about, yes, you have, I think it's Dr. Zekube who was talking about, of course, today you have a prime minister, the following day, the prime minister is voted out because there's a vote of confidence passed on him. It brings instability on his own. One recommendation is that we have a president who is president of Nigeria. I remember in 2014, we went before the conference, those of us from our family from Yoruba, because we come from a part of Nigeria that has the same people, the same culture, the same language, the same territory, which is suitable for us. We do not ask whether that is suitable for the South-South diverse ethnic nationalities. We do not ask whether that is suitable for the Middle Belt groups. At the end of the day, when we got to the conference, we were told that that did not work for Nigeria. We came back without regionalism. We came back with everybody insisting that the states will be the federating units. And the kind of system we have is that we have the president who will appoint his vice from parliament and who will appoint his minister from parliament in order to minimize the cost of governance. As I wrap up, the kind of system, yes, thank you. The kind of system that we will live, thank you, that we will live here with is that will ask, that will answer some legitimate question. It is, I mean, I've been hearing theories say, if you have a region today, take the North Central region, you ask yourself, will the open man in Kogi State, who cannot be governor of Kogi State, will he find himself inclusive in a North Central zone? You ask yourself, why is it even in the Southwest that the man in Yewa cannot be governor of Ogun State, where Dr. Begadane comes from? Since 1976, Yewa people have not been able to produce the governor. Why is it that it is only the team that can produce the governor of Benue State? Why is it that the people, the Ogun people in Kogi cannot be governor of that state? Why is it that the people of Southern Kaduna cannot produce the governor of that state? Why will a minister tell the whole Nigeria that he did a favor for the judge to be able to become the governor of Rivers State? These are practical issues that our constitution must answer, and that has been done under the 2014 National Congress. I'm leaving. The question is, you are talking of local governments. At a point in 2018, the APC wanted to have a different system from what Jonathan did in 2014. They constituted the L5 committee. They came up with far-reaching decisions. President Buhari was coming from, God bless his memory, was coming from abroad. In order to tell everybody that was not going to be part of it, he asked questions. He said, Nigerian constitution is fair. Otherwise, Kano will not have the same 3 senators as Bayelsa with 4 with 8 local government has. You can go into the analysis to be able to know that at the end of the day, why will the Federation of Nigeria determine the number of local governments? Under the 1973 to 1979 Constitution, the whole Anambra State has only had 23 local governments. Kano has 20. But under the 1999 Constitution, Anambra and Enugu today has 44 local governments. Kano, that was just 20. Kano and Jigawa today has 71. And the entire southeast of Nigeria is 95. What kind of constitution? If our constitution must be able to address these practical questions, you must address. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that the secret people are here, so we'll move on to the next item, which is rotational government leadership in Nigeria. In any case, I'm more than I have to invite Senator Femi Okuro and after him, Dr. Jonathan Akobe. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. The chairman of the Patriots and eminent patron of Nigeria. My topic is rotational government leadership in Nigeria. Any use and what options? Now, this subject is one that strongly agitates the minds of most Nigerians. Such and such a person or such and such a region or zone has had the presidency several times. It's our turn. That is the refrain you hear from almost everywhere. It's our turn. Because such and such those have had it. The extant 1999 Constitution is silent about the rotation of political leadership at the various levels of government. Yet, by some sort of informal zoning arrangements, within political parties. Rotation takes place to that extent. And failure to abide by these informal union norms can often lead to serious crisis in the political party concerned, as was witnessed in 2003 in the PDP. The 2014 National Conference recommended the constitutionalization of the rotation of leadership at the various tiers of government. But that recommendation is yet to be approved. It must be expected that I, being the architect of the above conference and a participant in its deliberation, would be inclined towards the recommendation of the conference. However, I believe this summit by the patriots offers an opportunity for a fresh and patriotic examination of the issue. Why do people clamor for rotational leadership, especially at the presidential level? It is because we are collectively as a nation perverted the essence of governance straight off the course of good governance into that of self-centered and ethnocentric governance. A good leader will regard all the peoples of Nigeria, of all ethnic groups and all religions as his people, and will display no special favor or bias towards any ethnic group or religion. As a leader, he must tribalize himself or herself. He must not make any ethnic group feel disadvantaged on account of not having one of its own occupying the leadership position. Our leaders today have been very far from abiding with this fundamental idea of good governance. On the contrary, our leaders have tended to follow the tactics of showing clear favoritism to members of their ethnic base by giving them top priority in the disposition of government favors and amenities, like appointments and provision of infrastructure. In its worst form, ethnocentric governance has taken the form of a section of the country, making it its goal to exercise monopoly of leadership over the rest of the country in perpetuity, giving rise to election manipulations, annulments, and constant national crisis. The persistence of this tendency over the years have given rise to the feeling in most Nigerians that unless a member from their own ethnic group is in power, they will not derive their due benefits from the government. This has in turn led to the adoption of a turn-by-turn philosophy of government and a clamor for rotational presidency. But I submit that we should not succumb to our base inclination. To adopt the rotational government leadership in Nigeria will be to accept the insolubility of the problems which have triggered the clamor. That is, that the Nigerian leader cannot govern fairly, treating the whole of Nigeria as his constituency. In the distribution of government ideas, that he cannot see people outside of his own ethnic group as his people, or seek the welfare of all Nigerians regardless of ethnicity and religion. It will be a surrender to the notion that to make Nigeria one nation is impossible, and that the effort is hardly worth making. And that the only way forward is to give each ethnic group a chance to deliver its own brand of bad leadership. Should that be the case, would that not even defeat the purpose of this summit? Nigeria, as of me, deserves better than the succession of bad ethnocentric leaders. Or constitutionally bad, quote, best presidents, end of quotes. Best presidents that never ruled. She deserves the best persons available for leadership at all tiers of government. She deserves at any one time to be led by the brightest and the best. In today's world, where increasingly might makes right, as demonstrated by current global conflicts, and where your might is determined by your economic and military prowess, no nation can afford to cede its leadership to a second-rate talent because of constitutional imperative of leadership rotation. Inasmuch as quality leadership materials will not by nature be confined permanently to any one geographic zone, the leadership will in the long term rotate. So it will be short-sighted to deny the best person available at any one time the leadership of the nation because it is not the turn of his or her zone to rule. Where we deny our best person leadership for rotational reasons, it is not the person that loses, it is the nation that loses. Part of the reforms we urgently need to prepare our nation for survival in the evolving age is the reform of our mindset. We need to rewire our brains to see leadership positions as calls to sacrifice and service, not positions to gratify the ego, acquire wealth, and indulge one's appetite for vanities. This will require a re-engineering of entire educational system. We must return to the teaching of values in our schools, of sacrificial love for one's nation, and of the supremacy of service to the nation over and above the exploitation of public office for personal gain. I should mention in passing that rotational leadership is pertinent only in the context of a presidential system of government. In the parliamentary system, which I believe is better suited for us in Nigeria, the leader of the victorious political party after an election, or the leader of the majority party in any proposed coalition government, automatically becomes the prime minister. As long as the ruling party keeps winning elections, its leader remains prime minister, although the party can at any time change its leadership, in which case the new leader becomes the prime minister. The question of rotational leadership does not arise. In conclusion, I submit that rotational government leadership will not serve Nigeria well. It will deny the nation the services of its best leadership material and lead to rotational mediocrity. Nigerians need to see leadership as an opportunity to serve and not simply to acquire wealth and power. If you avail ourselves of the services of our best material at any one time, no matter where he or she may come from, leadership will by itself rotate naturally over the long term. As quality is not confined to any one zone or region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I must appeal. And 5 minutes after 5 minutes. One more minute. Is Dr. Akume here?
Mr. Chairman, sir, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you a warm felicitation from Movement for National Reformation, MNR. We have considered the topic about government leadership, rotation, against the background that in the last 59 years of 1966, governance in Nigeria has operated without a written constitution, but based on a series of military laws as well as parliamentary laws. Now, the only constitution that was written and adopted and agreed upon by Nigerians was suspended by Decree number 1 of 1966. Between then and Decree 24 of 1999 has been a series of military rules, military laws. A decree is a political process of the military to manage power that was taken away forcefully from civil authorities. And even though we now run a civil administration, all the parliamentary laws that have been made are intended to amend those military laws, which is not possible. So for the past 59 years, we have run without a written constitution. And the thinking in MNR is that it is time to get the 1963 constitution that came from a bottom-up process of we, the people of Nigeria, referencing the 1950 constitutional conferences that took place at the headquarters of the 3 regional governments of Nigeria as a day. 2 questions were asked: the type of federalism that will resonate with the kind of ethnic groups that we have. Now, a clear feature of the military law is to centralize power. And a clear weakness of parliamentary law is that it intends to amend military law. You can't put something on nothing and it will stand. So the rise in our experience with centralized political power is that government leadership rotation that has been in practice between 1999 and now is between the North and the South. That has thrown the country into a stiff competition for political power among the ethnic groups. That stiff competition at times becomes deadly, and it comes with consequences that has created instability. It has created poor, let me say, prosperity, lack of economic prosperity, and lack of social justice. So, rotating leadership between North and South under a unitary system of government is not useful to us at all. And the evidence of that stiff competition for power, the features are very clear. Number one, you see a clear lack of ethnic consensus about governance. You also see legitimacy questions being raised about any administration in power. And at the end of the day, the best effort of every administration to resolve issues ends up becoming a recursive, putting up recursive policy measures or cyclical policy that do not solve the problem. A recursive policy problem is one that every step you take to solve a problem becomes the problem itself, or even bigger than the problem. So the option government leadership rotation that we propose from MNR is for us to get back to 1963 Constitution, amend it with current realities so that at the end of the day, the country, the polity will be structured in accordance with global best practices. The 1963 Constitution benefited from the 1950 Constitutional Conferences, the 1963 July meeting in Lagos of all ethnic groups that gathered to say, yes, we have chosen federalism as the basis of being together. And therefore, they made a proposal to the parliament that was in place, and the 63 Constitution came on board. Besides that, the 1963 Constitution itself has direct link with the governing principles that emerged from the 1648 Treaty of Westphalia, where the doctrine of minority emerged to say that governance should be based on freedom and liberty of the local identity of ethnic residents. That is also supported by the UN Charter on human rights about self-determination. Given these global best practices in governance, 1963 Constitution needs to be recalled from suspension. It is still a law that exists in Nigeria, but being subdued by the weight of military decrees that has been placed on it. Recalling the Constitution, amending it, will now bring about the first amendment of the 1963 Constitution. In that way, we will be setting constitutional evolution for the country on a path that meets global best practices, rather than reinventing the wheel every now and then. So our position in MNR is to recommend that government leadership rotation is not useful for us now, given the unitary process of governance that we have. Number two, bring back the 1963 Constitution, lift the suspension, and the federalist principles will be applied to amending it using current realities. For instance, the provenance of 36 states could be leveraged upon, and ethnic nationalities through referendum and boundary adjustment can now come up to make a choice of how they want to be. Federal unity should be based on ethnic nationalities and not just territory that we have at the moment. For now, the federating is the three-tier federating system that we have is simply creating the central government and composite administrative unit, which is not the best principle of federalism, which the principle that emerged from federalist principle of 1963 Constitution, ethnic nationalities can make a decision. In Nigeria, for instance, some federative units will be homogeneous, some will be heterogeneous, and the heterogeneous units can apply demographic and electoral determinant factors. Russia, for instance, has 85 federative units, classified into 6 groups, depending on autonomy and other peculiar regional issues. Nigeria can benefit from that practice as well. I will say that the issues of keen competition for political power at the center will be eliminated once the federative units are based on ethnic boundaries, which will become like what we have in the UN or what we have in other countries. And there are PowerPoint slides that are not put on the board that show this argument in numbers with best global practices. We would recommend that the Patriots should consider pulling these ideas together and putting them for the good of the country, which a restructured polity will have stable political, the polity will be stable, economic prosperity will be restored, and social justice will be the order of the day. I want to thank you very much for the opportunity given to us to share our thoughts with you.
Can we now move on to appropriate tenure for elected political office holders? And I have the pleasure of inviting Senator Shivu Sani, and so I invite Dr. Muti.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the topic that has been assigned to me is appropriate tenure for elected political office holders in Nigeria. Single term or 2 terms. We all know that the question of tenure for elected political office holders, whether Nigeria should adopt a single non-renewable term or retain the current 2-term renewable arrangement, has featured prominently in constitutional and political discourse over the years. But my argument in this presentation is that the central issue in Nigerian democracy is not the length or number of terms, but the effectiveness, transparency, accountability, and inclusivity of democratic process. Unless Nigeria improves the practice of democracy, changing tenure length will not yield significant gains in governance or development. More important, development has never been on the agenda of governance in Nigeria. And Claude Akin made this point many years ago. But we know that democracy, by its fundamental design, provides a system of governance based on participation, accountability, rule of law, and periodic elections. We all know that in the history of the world, democracy, the way we see it today, with modern political parties, is of recent origin. There are times where rule was by monarchy. There were times where it was actually a theocracy in some places. Even before the advent of other religions, where in the 4th century, where the Roman Empire was in power, the bishop of the place was the governor of the place. There were no elections. But over the years, we have come to the realization and conclusion that democracy is the best form of governance. And proponents of a single-year tenure for Nigeria argue that it eliminates distractions of the election, reduces cost of governance, and enables leaders to focus on long-term reforms. Opponents fear that it removes the reward mechanism for performance and limits the electorate's right to choose effective leaders more than once. However, both positions meet a deeper point. It is not the tenure length, but a lack of democratic culture, lack of vision for development, and weak institutions that undermine governance in Nigeria. A poorly practiced democracy, regardless of whether it's a term of 4 years, 6 years, or 8 years, will continue to produce disappointing outcomes. So the real issue is not tenure, but poor democratic practice. And Nigerian democratic experience, especially since return to civilian rule, not democratic rule, in 1999, reveals persistent structural and systematic challenges, including weak electoral process that does not need further elaboration, lack of accountability, the level of corruption is indescribable, poor citizen participation in the 2023 elections, the percentage voter turnout was 27%, a situation where we had less than 9 million people electing a president for a country of over 200 million people. Over centralization of power, many speakers have talked about this. Politicization of institutions, everything has been politicized, and lack of focus on development. I do not know whether any of you have studied the budget of Nigeria and even the states of the federation. If you look at the budget, carry the budget, find the day, look at it from beginning to the end. It will not be surprising to you why we are not making progress in the country. We studied state government budgets, and we discovered that for most states of the federation, the allocation to government house is more than allocation to 5 ministries put together. And so, what we need, if you look at these experiences from other parts of the world, United States of America have 2-term, 4-year presidential system. Mexico and Philippines, 1-term, 6-year presidency with no re-election. France, 2-term, 5-year semi-presidential system. Ghana and South Africa, 2-term. They found that Mexico has a single term, does not make its democracy better than United States or France. So what do we need to do? We need to focus on strengthening institutions. We need to deepen political accountability. We need to promote civic engagement and political education. We need to reform political finances. We need to devolve power through federalism. We need to ensure fiscal federalism and resource control. And we need to undertake electoral reform. And more importantly, we need to promote national developmentalist coalition and social movement organizing. Therefore, in conclusion, while the debate on single versus 2 terms remains relevant, Nigeria's primary challenge lies in the poor practice of democracy. Whether it's 4 years, 6 years or more, no tenure length can replace the need for robust institutions, credible elections, political accountability, focus on development, and active citizen participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We now go to the essentials of democratic federation for Nigeria. And I have the pleasure of asking Dr. Ole Oladipo was
I appreciate the organizers of this summit. In the past 15 to 20 years, I've been very much involved in debates, in conversations, interventions related to and allied to the theme of this summit.
And some of them are there in the spring. And at the point in time, I did not identify Nigeria, where is your birth certificate? What are we talking? Essentials of federalism. I don't want to go into legal definitions. Don't want to bombard us what the learned authors and rulers have said, or what they have postulated about federalism. Let us be practical about it. What is federalism? A compact, an arrangement, a decision between willing parties, the component, the central, or the federative units. Let's take an example. When to form a company, you have a memorandum of association, articles of association. Here, you have that you delineate who will be the director, what will be the object, what will be the objectives, what will be the share capital, and how you're going to operate. Just there said that when most of us who are students of English, we might have read Shakespeare's Hamlet, title is Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark. You can't play Hamlet without the Prince of Denmark. It's not possible. What are the essentials of federalism? Institutions. And what are the institutions? Among them, the executive, whether it is parliamentary, whether it is presidential, the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, and others, including, I'm not limited to political parties, institutions, not personalities. We are talking of strong institutions that will entail, that will last and outlive the personalities. We are talking of strong personalities. And here in Nigeria, what do we have? We have a constitution. There must first and foremost be a constitution. We have to talk with this idea. We are treating it as if we are in a regime. It is not. A constitution is the life wire of any democratic government, of that democratic experiment, of democratic parties, or democratic institutions. Now, when you take America, for example, you have the Democrats. The party formed around 1750. They are still there today. You have the Republicans. Formed century later, they are still there today. When you go to the United Kingdom or Britain, for example, you have the Conservatives, and you have the Labour Party, you have the Liberal Democrats, and others. Do we have them in Nigeria? Your guess is as good as mine. May we, at this conference and at this summit, come to this idea. Let us face it. It could appear that our central government is becoming overbearing. It is not the question of the minorities talking of Nigeria has military government. Let us have a think. Army University was killed in 1966 because of Decree number 34, titled the unitary government, or naming Nigeria, or saying that the regions, the west, the east, the north, and the midwest, only them provinces. It was slaughtered. What do we have now? We are more unitary than what we had in 1966. Let's first think. Just said, thought is not in ourselves or in ourselves. Let us first think now. Do we continue this way? I'm not making a case for President Tinubu, but he is a Democrat. The Democrats is saying that once upon a time, we might not have had the opportunity of having this summit. Why am I saying that? I'm talking from experience. I was the president of the Nigerian Bar Association in 2002, 2004. We suggested right from there, telling the president there that Mr. President, this conference will take us nowhere. Let us do something about it. President will not have anything. He didn't want to have here. He didn't want to listen to us. Then no. Then no. Ask them to upgrade this constitution. Without being voted, they will not succeed. What are we saying? There must be something for us to administer. Something that is executable, something that is honest, something that we know that will come together, we accept it as a pluralistic state. That's the way forward. God himself says in the book of Isaiah, come, let us listen together. And we listening together, nobody has it all. And Lord Atkins said, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now let me come to my confession, legal confession. There are things Nigerians don't know, and it is better that we let them bear in a summit like this. Once upon a time, the judiciary in Nigeria, particularly at the state level, the judiciary was so independent, so iconic, so strong. That was on the hand of the time of General Abacha. People might not know there is a section 251 in the Constitution today, which is called embracing, all embracing. My brothers and friends in the National Assembly, I respect them so much. They say there are many in the Constitution that will go around. With all respect to them, they are putting the cap on the It's not done that way. What they are doing, and with all respect to them again, it's an aberration. Yes. You say you want to amend this, want to amend that. That's not the job. They are not a strong umpire. You are talking that we must not judicialize our democracy. What am I saying? It is not the duty of courts to decide who will be governor, who will be president, who will be a legislator, who will be a party chief executive. No. It's been right there in all these laws of England, where we borrow our democracy. The court will not interfere in the decision of the electorate, because you are submitting your sovereignty when you cast a ballot and you put it in the ballot box. It's not the duty of the courts, except in exceptional circumstances. Now let me go back. I have just 5 minutes. Section 251 of the Constitution. When you look at it, it's now federal. The Federal High Court has jurisdiction on all subjects under the Act. What we have now at the state level is what I call agrarian jurisdiction. That's what they have left for the state high courts. If you are your wife quarrel, go to the Federal High Court. But here, you have problems with John, who are your chief executives, go to the Federal High Court. It's never done anyway. Whereas under the 1979 Constitution, as a perfect as it might be, I know I will keep my time. The jurisdiction of the Federal High Court was made subject to that of the State High Court. Is now the reverse. The jurisdiction of the State High Court is now made subject to the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court. And you have a National Assembly now. They are going wrong. Apology to my brother and friend, Otumba. They are not toying, they don't say, in fact, they are not. They are not even suggesting that they want to amend that constitution, that provision. By the way, you amend what is not amendable. You want to amend the constitution. The preamble states, we the people of Nigeria, you have to first of all amend the preamble. When you write a letter to your wife, Do you start with signature at the end of it all? Won't you say, my dear one? The prayer is equivalent to you saying your dear one. So when you want to amend, that's the first thing you amend, you dare amend it. Why can't we be honest with ourselves? Now a warning. Sir, if we continue this way, now we have a demo. The person of Tinubu, film president. Tomorrow, and tomorrow I'm talking about, it's not Thursday. It might be immediately after Tinubu, 2031, God willing, and by the grace of God, I'm not campaigning, but Nigeria might have a good team. We might have a dictator. Nigeria might end up in the belly of the waves. Whether you are in the majority, whether you are in the minority, nobody safe. Now the time. We appreciate you. I have to be bound to you, like Father. You have been calling upon me to come and resume my seat. But thank you, sir. God bless you. Yeah, right.
Great elders, ladies and gentlemen. I had to answer a number of questions, but why leading northern groups to reach not one was not here in the numbers that was expected. I'm afraid I didn't have anybody's mandate to offer up an apology or to speak for them. But I suspect that dominant thoughts behind the failure of northern groups to be here would have been the idea that this is just going to be another talk show. And quite possibly, because they are elite, it will be elites talking to elites, and no good thing will come out of this. Which is really sad. It's a very sad reflection. But prepared to be shocked, I think they will be correct too. Look at this room. The average age in this room will be what, 45, 55. The average age, with all due respect to high table here, would be 60, 70. I don't know if there's anybody participating here who is 35 in this room, unless they are serving things. Yes, it's you, only you. The point I'm making is we've done this over and over and over again. We're trying to fix a country. We're trying to see if we can produce the best constitution, and we're using the same language that the British did from day one. How do we create a country where the elite determine one's happiness? It was never about citizens, never. Why aren't we talking about the citizens' constitution? Why are we talking about ethnic federation, types of federation, types of groupings? What is the difference between the poor man in the village in Kano, city, a town without drinking water, no tarred roads, or in Zamfara, who lives daily with killers, bandits? What difference do the number of local governments they have? What is the difference between how many local governments they have between them and Anambra or Akwa? We are not concerned with the citizens. If we're going to rebuild Nigeria, it has to be on the basis of a nation of citizens, not a nation that we elite want. This is what we have been getting wrong. By talking about how we want to see Nigeria, nobody is talking about the federation of citizens. first identify the citizen. Go back to the Constitution. Read Chapter 2, Fundamental Objectives and Directive Principles of State Policy. Read what is in there. That's the closest we came to defining what Nigeria should be, how Nigeria should govern, what ideals we should. Nobody talks about it. You know what they did with that? They created a fantastic Chapter 2, took out the bullet out of the gun. They made it non-justiciable. And that was the closest to define what is Nigeria? Who was it designed for? Why is it not possible for the citizen in Yobe to have the same rights, the same privileges as the citizen in Ondo? Why does it have to be, why must he be defined by his ethnic and not by being Nigerian? Why can't you build a nation that gives the citizen first rights, inalienable rights that are the same wherever he goes, no matter what language he speaks? We're still talking about ethnicity. We're talking about things that are rather than things that will do things for us. So if we want to really design or redesign the Constitution, whoever does it, and I assure you, this administration will not do it, the next administration will not do it. If you are looking up to this government or subsequent governments to submit to the will of the elite to redesign a constitution that fits another elite that is not currently enjoying power, you're wasting your time. Nigeria may go down as we're going down. I pray to God it doesn't. Or it might recover and find its course and its vision. But it will not be done by us. The way we're going, if we're not careful, we will write a constitution by written by sweat, tears, and blood of young people who we kept out and we're keeping out, and we're designing systems and processes that fit us and do not address the needs of the young Nigerian. We want a citizen's constitution. No matter how difficult it is, we can write a citizen's constitution. I was very interested in the my senior brother's last presentation. I'm going to be told to stop talking, so let me speak. He listed heroes of democracy. In those countries, virtually every one of those countries where those people came from, they had to fight a civil war. We don't want to fight a civil war again. We fought for it. We missed the point. When elite fights, you get a civil war. When our young people are knocking on the door now saying, please let us in, this country belongs to us. This is wrong to them. And we pretend that we will design for them the Nigeria that fits us, not them. They will break that door and they will come into it. And we're at that point. There's anger, there's alienation, and we have kept the energy and the anger of young people outside, and we think we can sit comfort and design a Nigeria for them. We are wrong. And if we think we can take a document to this government or another government, say to them, design this or redesign this, is wrong. People who benefit from Nigeria of today are sitting there benefiting, and they will not change Nigeria. They will not change the system. We want to go to the people that this constitution has produced, who are benefiting from it. 80% of our resources are in their hands and their pockets, and say, please stop what you're doing and do this. Take power from you. It's wrong. They will never do that. We need to have a sense of urgency about this too. We're going about it as if it's just another thing that we can take the next 5, 10, 15 years. Nigeria doesn't have 20 years to continue to survive. Believe me, honestly, it doesn't. Anybody who tells you Nigeria can survive for another 20 years with the level of alienation and anger and violence and poverty is wasting their time. They don't know this country. So what do we need to do? Yes, sir. We need to speak more with each other, but we need to speak more with the younger people, women, groups that are not part of what is going on. We need to organize change beyond the hotels. We need to ask why the northern groups are not here and reach out to them and say, You are suffering as much as we're doing. We need to tap the young people in this country, recognize them, use their energy, use their strength to build Nigeria well. Thank you.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to the electoral reform of INEC. Is Professor Ibrahim, and she is not here. Dr. Diane. So we then, I read, invite Dr. Usman I can see maybe Balano there. Maybe Balano here. We are.
I'm sorry, sir, I'm just going to use myself. Like other guest speakers, I would like to express my profound gratitude to the organizers of this program, particularly His Excellency Chief Emeka Ayo, for putting this together. We have been struggling in the area of national conference. We used to call it a sovereign national conference, particularly under the military, when a sovereign national conference was the only means and effective means of demilitarizing politics in Africa. Remember, I think Chief Alani Pekun was trying to make the point that Chief Alani Pekun said an attempt to have a national conference in 1990 was disrupted by the Ibrahim Babangida Shogunta that gathered together in the National Theatre. They all dispersed forcefully. So I think it is the fact that we have a pseudo-democratic system of government that this type of conference is allowed to hold. My job is extremely simple, straightforward. Which is to look at the electronic system of voting. And I wish to submit without any fear of contradiction that Nigerian courts are totally opposed to the introduction of any form of electronic voting. In 2010, amended 2010 Electoral Act, amended in 2015 by the Jonathan administration, empowered INEC to adopt any method, any procedure, to conduct the elections in Nigeria. And I think the government decided to use that period for the identification of politics, risking manipulation of our reputation of voting. To know how many people are repeated in each of the constituents. What do you think of the Supreme Court? Because it's illegal to have many people that are in use of candidates. The government is similar commission. If the government I think about the legal guidelines and I don't get the record of this after the elections. I think that's all they are professional.
There were two schools. But the definition of that, we only think that they can speak that myself and then come together. It's not. But in the case of relative, the use of machines and the use of the soil was optional by the sort of us. It's simple. And I never said this. And the National Assembly shall not be true. But now the use of human machines and the electronic manipulation of the source and by making them part of the electron. Only by the same time. If I sit down and the talking with the rest, the current members of the National Assembly have to find yourself for the campaign identify the law of the National Assembly to my right. For this, I want to say why there is a that the only set of the disabled are very conservative with the permanent electoral system. I want to correct it. And the intention of appointment. And the other thing, for allowing the soil to the Republican Constitution. So that the family grow and continue. Where we discuss ourselves. But why does not make sure that? But as a level to conduct everything else. It's not to do something more to determine whether or not the election. Whatever we are doing, or to be able to speak more, whether or not the election are not doing. So what I like to declare, we can't go around it. But the solid this sound of the planet, we get the government, the way of the life of the people, from the election that we have. Let me say this one. Yeah. But this is very important. And I think the election has done. No. But still, you have to the final is every section of the election was controlled. And what they did, they were able to say, oh, 2 days, 2 hours. And they find everybody in the Southwest 6 days to travel to the meeting. In spite of the government, the sound of the region of the 7 states. So we are first people to start from the south, from the Gawa to the Union. And what they are going to say, they are constitutional review. They are not citizens. Please speak on the sovereignty and the bound house of God. What are the only one of the so what we have to do is Christianity. So whatever what kind of thing they have to start with is they are going to amend because we never discover. Because some is so they will not be with you. As long as you have the only way you can tell me the 1999 Constitution, you should have been and every country with the power of the Constitution. The National Assembly is currently expanding the powers of the Senate. More powers have been concentrated in the Assembly. That's the truth. People are going to be when it is governments are not answering it. Because by the time of the there, or the constitution, that the more is on the but that's it. And that's the reason why we're saying that we go out to them. But I'm simply defense. I'm not going to make a single defense. So that is all. But yes, I think this. Well, I just want to have a mission. And everybody see it. I've just said it all. 7 programs instead of 6. And here, the federal government has no man outside of the but you want to believe in the land of my sex. All I want to absolutely Right is what of the country with the president. The party is what they're fighting. The president, the government, and the operational act of the president. The national party is fighting 7,000 years. But we are 16. So that's what the train starts right by.
Thank you very much. Thank you, fellow. That's please regard SAN. Long time. So I now would like to find may I invite NOB?
Very distinguished Chairman, Your Excellency, and members of the Patriots, fellow compatriots. It's a great pleasure to be here this afternoon to share some of my thoughts, about the single-day election versus staggered election. Nigerian democracy, when we are looking at Nigeria, it is Africa's largest democracy. And I want to say that it has grappled with optimizing its electoral processes. Some of the key debates centers around whether elections should be conducted all in a single day or staggered across the multiple phases. Elections are the heartbeat of democracy. How we conduct them matters as much as the votes themselves. I want to begin this conversation by talking about the quality of citizenship. No matter what, whether we are talking of the constitution, a new constitution can come, but what is the quality of the citizens that will implement that? Because what we see from the last elections, well, in 2023, I was the convener of the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, and I was also the country director of Action in Nigeria, working in about 26 states. And I saw a lot of things that happened. We talked about Professor Mahmoud. I think my senior comrade, someone that I respect so much, Femi Falana, who used to provide pro bono law, facilities for us when we were students. I think Labaramaku is still here. At any point that we are arrested, himself and Gani Fahmi will, of course, be responsible for freeing us from detention during the military era. I respect you, sir. And thank you for standing tall. I came here to be, I thought I was going to give some energy out, but I became energized to see a distinguished person like Chief Emeka himself to be here still calling for Nigeria. And I looked at myself, I thought I was getting too old for this activity. But I'm finding this with General Nwachukwu here, all of them with Eon, everybody here, and Benga Daniels, to still be here and talking of the way forward for Nigeria. It means I'm just beginning. And it means we have to all re-energize ourselves to continue the struggle. So who is the Nigerian that we're talking about? Who will implement? What is your quality now? When we were growing up, the issue of patriotism was not a debatable issue. We were patriotic Nigerians. I remember when Chima Obani, blessed memory, died. I know his name is Igbo, but somehow I didn't know where Chima came from until we had to go and bury him in Abia. It was, for me, he was a Nigerian. And so the issue of the quality of the citizen, whether you are in the National Assembly, whether you are a governor, whether you are a president, what is the quality of that Nigeria that is occupying the space? What is your quality? And I ask every one of us, are you one of those who have been betraying Nigerians? Are you one of those who is not implementing what you're supposed to implement? So all of the laws will make no meaning if the quality and the value of the citizen is reduced. This is to compare both electoral systems and assess which approach is better for Nigeria. What is the current happening in Nigeria? We have the presidential election and the National Assembly elections first. And then we go in for the governorship and state houses, of assemblies. And then we have, so we have that staggered already. And then we have the off-cycle elections, which includes states like Anambra. We are going into Anambra election very soon. We have Kogi, Bayelsa, Imo, Edo, Osun, Ekiti, and so on and so forth. This is being managed by the Independent National Electoral Commission. What is it about the single-day election? It is a synchronized system where all federal and state elections, presidential, national assembly, gubernatorial, and state assemblies are held on the same day nationwide. If you look at it properly, why is it? Because what it means is 2 extra ballots. You have 3 ballots already, because somebody is going to vote for the president, is going to vote for national assembly, is voting for House of Assembly. Why not add 2 extra ballots? Instead of another more than 10,000 vehicles that you have to run around with nationwide. And so all the elections that we're talking about, we are saying that the elections will be held in a single day. It is argued South Africa has adopted that, India partially, Brazil, and the Ghana also. Some of the prospects for this is that it reduces cost for human and materials. The number of the volume of people that you take for presidential elections is the same number that you take for governorship election. And so what's the point? Doubling that effort, because each time INEC will have to prove so many things again. But with a single day election, you can bring everybody on board. What is the staggered election that we're talking about is that elections are conducted in different phases, either the election type or by regions. Nigerian current INEC model is a semi-staggered approach. The United States, and different states also practicing this. Some India, because India has a huge population. What is the comparison? You are looking at security in a single day election, less room for manipulation and fewer deployments. Because what we are having now is after the federal election, after the National Assembly and the presidential election and all of that, then we go down to who becomes the governor, but less manipulation if you bring it to a single day. And then, you also have less in terms of security. Mobilizing security through time was for us that monitor or what should I say, observe elections is really a huge task to move men and materials to the field. And so voter turnout, the last elections also show that if you want to do election twice, you are bound to, the voters, once the presidential election, depending on how it is pronounced or how INEC handles, many people will not bother themselves because they believe that their vote does not count. The standard election you have is easier in terms of voter education and less fatigue. For single day election, maybe burden on one day, and that will be, it will be like we may have to order for an extra vehicle or something to carry the materials. But standard election looks easier from what we are doing. Whenever we go for a show like we're going to Anambra State in the next few months, it is easier because you are focusing on one state. But for a very long time, even if we have a single day election, with all of these all-cycle elections, we still have to grapple with it because the election cycle has completely changed. It is faster in terms of clearer transmission, reduces fatigue, and then it strengthens unity because every citizen is mobilized for a single day. That they go out and cast your vote. Everybody can go out. But when you take it down, and then the analysis of the election, many people lose hope because of the question of trust. And that goes back again to what I said, the question of citizenship. It is not the machines, it is humans that are handling the machines. Who are the Nigerians that are handling this machine? And I can tell you, after monitoring being involved 2 years before the 2023 general election, many of us will not see it. The current INEC has the capacity to have given us the best election. But what happened to them? The humans. The single day election challenges, requires flawless arrangement by INEC nationwide. Ballot complexities, earlier in the days, I can tell you that some people used to carry the ballot boxes to their homes and come to the polling units in the morning. That was when transparency and accountability was at its best. And then they will announce the election, and nobody was sealing votes at the time. But things changed. What has changed? The value reorientation. Are we going to reorient ourselves and put a different value? For standard elections, some of the challenges include higher costs, risks of judicial overload from multiple districts, and then earlier results may shape voters' behavior for subsequent environments. I want to say that for political, public and political reactions, many Nigerians support a single-day system for fairness and efficiency, and for reduction of costs as well. Political elites may prefer staggering to influence outcomes and maintain control. Like the governor will determine who becomes which one. The members of the House of Assembly or the president can even influence who becomes the governor. That can be reduced. I come to recommendations that we need to look at single-day elections very, very seriously, because what we have done is like tautology. It's like you have created a way to waste. And this was done, I think, by the Obasanjo administration at one point, because we were having single-day election until we wanted to control, governorship elections. So enhanced voter education. The last election, I can tell you, there was almost no political education except for one civil society organization state. So it's a minute. Thank you. There was no, voter education ought to be carried out by political parties. They didn't, INEC itself, they didn't until almost the election. I was asking INEC, where are the IEC materials? They said they were still developing. And they have been giving about 300 million for the election. We need to follow the money as well, transparency and accountability. So it is very important to carry out, political education. It's going to be very difficult for the next election. For us who mobilize for citizens to go for election, it's going to be very difficult because they don't trust anyone. The continuous voter registration that was done in the past made people to start believing again. Off-cycle election, which was the standard election, was making us believing from Anambra before 10 p.m., every result was uploaded, down to Ekiti, down to Osun, all of those things. But when it came to the federal elections, I made use their own, which we confronted them, because months before we heard that they were not going to upload, and eventually they did not upload. So the debate is not just logical. It is fundamentally about how we build a trust for credible and inclusive education. I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, that as a woman sitting out here, I just want to say that, we are sitting here and talking about our nation today. The girls from Chibok, many of them are still in captivity. There are so many girls that are still in captivity. There are so many women and children that are in IDPs in this country. And each of the local governments that they are controlled, the local governments have allocations, but nobody cares for them in the IDP camps. You will not know what it is to be in IDP camp unless you're a woman. When you see your message and you have nothing to control it, sanitation and all of that. Let's remember the women of this country. You are not doing them a favor when you correct the imbalance, which is kind of the federal character.
Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Green, our former Minister of Health, sent a representative, and SG Dogo is our representative. Is to speak to us for 5 minutes. SG Dogo here. SG Dogo is here. Very quick. Yeah. Well, it is not fair. Right.
Permit me to stand on the already established protocol. I'm here to talk on the diaspora, Nigerians in the diaspora. By verifiable statistics, we have over 17 million Nigerians in the diaspora. Again, this same group of Nigerians remit as much as $20 billion annually into the economy of this country. Yet, this same group of people not recognized in the Constitution of Nigeria. I'm here standing on behalf of them, not the diaspora, but Professor Grange asked me to come here, tell this August audience that they want diasporians enshrined in the Nigerian Constitution. They are also citizens of this country. Now, one of the things they demand is that they should be given voting rights. Again, now this voting right will enable them to vote during the presidential election, governorship, and referendum-based elections. The diasporans also want to participate in conferences and restructuring dialogues
just like we agreed, so that they will come here and also speak on behalf of the diasporans. Again, they want the Ministry of Nigeria in the Diaspora Affairs. This ministry will be independent of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and they think they have the capacity to coordinate every foreign direct investment for Nigeria. And the time is not very much for me. Let me read this. I just wrote from the text they gave to me. The Nigerian Diaspora Coalition for Change asserts without equivocation that true national transformation demands the immediate dismantling of Nigeria's bloated and parasitic cabinet. And I think some of the speakers have made mention of this earlier. Again, they said the federal character versus institutional bloating. The principle of federal character is sacrosanct, but it must never weaponize to justify inefficiency. And I agree with this because you go to the ministries, the houses of assemblies, overbloated the people who have nothing to do other than to pursue and go out with senators and all of that. And I want to say here again that the police should be reduced from this people. Because that is the reason why they have the chance. The money given to them for constitutional allowance, they are not using those money for it, but they instead they use it to pay all this people, and this has generated a lot of this. I am a part of this. My senior boss is here, General Wachu. Now I met him first time when I was a cadet in 1999. So on this note, let me stop here. Thank you.
I'd like at this point to invite Dr. Moyle, who CEO and President of NADECO United States. See here. I can see it. Haven't talked to us for 5 minutes.
The chairman, the patriots, Chief Meka Anyoko, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I bring you greetings from the National Democratic Coalition, NADECO USA, based in Washington, D.C. I only intimated Chief Nyoko that I will be visiting to attend this event. So I wasn't given a topic to speak on, but I would just like to say that learned colleagues had stated earlier that in 1787, there was a conference in Philadelphia. That conference was because they wanted to move far from the center to the people. Sorry, to move far from the people to the center. The opposite of what we're trying to get. That was because the 13 colonies of the United States were initially given more powers than the center. And the center had a very difficult time trying to raise the army, the customs, immigration, and stuff like that. So in that 1787, they gathered to give power to the center. Here we are gathering to move power from the center to the people. No matter what you think about it, it's exactly the same thing. Because we are trying to see how we can fix the anomalies that we have in our constitution. And every country that has a good constitution must be a constitution based on past experiences. From 1776, when they had their independence, the constitution didn't work for them. So they felt that there was a need for them to come together for 4 months in Philadelphia. The oldest person that attended was 85 years. The youngest was 26. They gathered for 3 months. And if you look at when they gathered, it was part of the cold season. And they deliberated, and they went there not to write a new constitution. They went there to amend the Articles of Confederation. But they ended up writing a new constitution. We're here to argue to write a new constitution. Now, I think I'm expected to speak for the diaspora, having come from outside to attend the conference. One major thing that the diasporans would like to see happen is to be part of the discussions to grow the country. For example, they would like to be given the opportunity to vote wherever they are, the rest of the world. They don't have to come to Nigeria to vote. Many countries allow that. The United States allows people outside their embassies and other parts of the world to vote and have their voices heard by the country. So that's one major aspect that the Nigerians who live outside would like to see this conference take a look at. Having said that, I would like to say that we are very happy, the diasporans, to be part of this exercise. Although it was an individual effort from NADECO to come and attend, there was no special invitation, and I didn't prepare a position for NADECO. I hope I'll have the opportunity and the time to do that at another period of time. Thank you so much for allowing me this very time to speak.
Thank you very much, representative of NADECO USA. Mr. Chairman stepped out briefly, but asked me to do a housekeeping announcement that tomorrow's resolution event, the summit tomorrow, will not hold here, but we hold at the conference hall of the Nikon Luxury Hotel, Area 11. Tomorrow's event, concluding event, will be at the Nikon Luxury Hotel Conference Hall. All delegates are expected to be seated by 9 a.m. And we are very glad that this summit has been very inclusive. We have not the South here. We have taken interventions from northern delegates, and we have also taken from southern delegates. And the youths are here. The chairman is going to give them an opportunity to speak, because Baba Ahmed also made allusion to that. And we have about 4 youth groups here that are itching to go. But one of them will be speaking on behalf of the Nigerian youth. The chairman will call him at the appropriate time. So it promises to be a great summit that is going to produce a stakeholders legislative bill that will go to the president and the National Assembly. So it's not a talk shop, it's not a gambling. And that is why people like Labarat Mabu, the Middle Belt Forum, have spoken. And that is Shetima Gerima, representing Arewa Consultative
youth consultative forum, and so on and so forth. We have taken all of this intervention. Tamboa, Aminu Tamboa, it is not, it is sound, it is inclusive, and we are happy to proceed forward tomorrow to have a conclusive part of this summit. I thank you as I yield the floor to Mr. Chairman.
All right, I think what I would like to do now is to invite the representative of the youth to speak for 5 minutes. Then after that, I would suggest that we have an open discussion for about an hour, 5 o'clock. Then after 5 o'clock, we have discussion for an hour, and hopefully we have done. So may I invite Barrister Peter Ekweme, who I gather is the deputy of the youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Barrister Peter Ekweme. I'm the youth leader of Southeastern Delegates. The chairman of Veterans, Chief Emeka Ayoko, GCON, my late father's great friend. Fellow Nigerians, respected elders, stakeholders in nation building, and my dear young patriots. I stand before you today, not just as a youth leader, but as a voice echoing the hopes, frustrations, and the dreams of millions of young Nigerians across our great nation. Our gathering here speaks to a vital issue. And mine is the need for the effective inclusion of young people in the constitutional review process of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The Nigerian youths constitute over 60% of our population. We are not just the leaders of tomorrow. We are the leaders of today. From technology and entrepreneurship to advocacy, innovation and activity, young Nigerians are already in the forefront of societal transformation. Yet, when it comes to decisions that shape our collective destiny, especially in the review and reform of our constitution, we remain largely underrepresented, not entirely excluded. This can continue. Nigerian constitution as it stands is a living document. However, like every living thing, it must evolve. It must be reviewed and amended to reflect current realities, address historical injustices, and lay the foundation for a more just, equitable, and prosperous nation. To achieve that, the process must be inclusive, participatory, and representative of all groups, especially the youth. Young people possess unique strengths that make our inclusion not just necessary but strategic. We are digitally literate, socially aware, and connected in ways that previous generations were not. We understand the language of modern governance, development, and accountability. We know how to mobilize, we know how to communicate ideas, and how to push for real change. More importantly, we are the generation that will live longest. With the consequences of any constitutional reform, like this one, we should not be passive observers. We must be active architects of the Nigeria we want to inherit. Some may argue that constitutional review is a job for experts and political leaders. While legal and institutional knowledge is essential, it cannot be complete without lived experience. And no group understands the lived reality of today's Nigeria better than its youth. Whether it's unemployment, police brutality, access to quality education, social injustice, or civic engagement, the youth face these issues daily. Who better then to help shape a constitution that addresses them, if not them? But beyond participation, we must also be prepared for implementation. And this is where the strength of the youth shines even brighter. Young people are builders. We are the ones who will implement and enforce whatever changes that are made in this constitutional review. We're in the classrooms, we're in the marketplaces, on the farm, behind the laptops, and on the streets. We're in the churches, mosques, campuses, and town halls. We are ready to take ownership of our future and leadership. Therefore, we call on the National Assembly, Nigerian Political Summit Group, Constitutional Review Committees to create deliberate framework that will ensure youth inclusion in all phases of this constitutional review process, from consultation to drafting, to the dissemination and advocacy, not as token representatives, but as equal stakeholders with the right to shape our future. Let this be the generation that rewrites not just the Constitution, but the story of Nigeria. A story where young people are not seen as threats or burdens, but as co-authors of progress. The time is now. The youth are ready. Let us rise and be recognized. Thank you, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you very much. May I now invite say his or her name, where he or she comes from. And we have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Professor Fatai Sambo from University of Ibadan.
My name is Nella Anjem Ewa, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. I'm from Cross River State, but here as a member of or trustee of PANIT. We are here And we have committed as a call to conscience, call to nation building, call to unity, and good governance. And I believe we all agree that we need a new constitution. But I wonder why I am here from Cross River State. If Cross River State is said to be non-littoral, is said to be landlocked, and yet we are members of the United Nations and UNCLOS. There's been a judgment, there was a judgment that caused an uproar in this country, and it was redressed. How was it redressed? By the National Assembly. If we are going to have a constitution, an opportunity to have a constitution, I think that because of what we know, that until the dichotomy of onshore, offshore was reversed so that it was reintroduced, we did not know peace. That should be entrenched. But I believe that the issue as to littoral states, what it is, and in accordance with UNCLOS, should also form part of this new constitution. We cannot talk about fairness if a state that has suffered all that it has suffered would, and everybody knows that there is no way a state called Cross River, and by virtue of its location, strategic location, to the extent that the naval eastern flank, naval command is in Calabar, it will be a state that is said to be non-littoral. I think it's an aberration that needs to be addressed. So all the proceedings so far, witness, I think we also agree that women should be protected and should be more participating and more representative in governance as well as other areas. I recommend that an inclusion and social integration commission be established and recognized in the Constitution. When the North agreed that they were educationally banned, we had a federal character. And whether we like it or not, it has worked to some extent. It may not be implemented as it should be, but at least there is a consciousness and there is an effort. And I'm saying that women, youth, and vulnerable groups should also be protected so that their representation is guaranteed by the Constitution itself. When there is something like comment, that when there is a constitution that you follow, you are guided, however well or otherwise, but there is something that you are implementing. And we are saying we have spoken about Beijing for so long. We know the vulnerable groups. The youth are also talking. Let there be a machinery put in place and protected and be pursuant to the Constitution to ensure that the rights and empowerment of women, youths, and vulnerable groups is guaranteed. Thank you.
Dr. Sam
Amadi, please.
Mr. Awad, right?
Sam Amadi.
Is that get ready?
Thank you so much. Well, I think you have done interesting discussion so far. I just want to raise 3 more issues. Earlier in the day, Dr. B and others talked about the structure. How much does structure account for the current chaos? And how much of a problem leads to structure. I think it's just to make this point very clear. Yes, structure matters. Evidence shows that most parliamentary societies have had more economic success than present system of government. So that's clear. Empirical evidence shows that economic parliamentary system they lead more to economic growth than the rest. Evidence also shows that maybe our problem is that we have evolved systems that were not rigorous. So somebody argued here when we were discussing the 1963 Constitution, 1963 are better, but they also failed. So the two things I want to introduce to this conversation is that it's important that we have more rigorous conversations before enacting amending the Constitution. Nigerian Constitution has been thoroughly over-amended that is now a source of instability for our politics. No debate among scholars. The more durable politics are those that have less amended constitutions. For example, the US Constitution, other constitutions. So I want to say that whatever we're going to change, let's have debate around it. That's a second point. I also want to challenge our lawyers. I'm a lawyer, a training law professor, but I think there's so much legal fetishism about constitutions. I think we need to have more robust social science conversations and not just allow lawyers to frame constitutional texts. An example shows the Electoral Act. We have amended our Electoral Act several times. Each time, each failure goes back to amendment, and that amendment creates more failure. So just like the Senate Pocket said, we should not legalize political crisis. And the last point I want to make is that I think there's a crisis around two things. One is ideation. What I hear here is about Nigerians saying, what kind of people want to be? Baba Ahmed made a point, and I think I want to underscore that point. The price of our constitution is that we have to make a choice when we want to be a democratic modern state built around the concept of democratic citizenship. That's very important. If we are not willing to be a nation, one nation, defined by common citizenship, then we're going to go back endless cycle, whether state creation, whether the minorities from 1958 Wilkes Commission, the debate led to the 1960 Constitution, with the provision for fundamental human rights, with the provision for Nile Delta development, with the debate around state police, and Wilkes concluded that we should have first federal police after 3 years we can have regional police. So I want to provoke that every constitution, look at the US Constitution, they always follow a political theory. The theory around who do we want to be. In 1957, for example, just to provoke us, the Northern region brought experts, including Professor Anderson and the chief imam of India, chief of Pakistan, to take around how should the Northern Nigeria deal the issue of Sharia. And they gave us a model that was reflected in the 1960 Constitution, which what do we want to be as a country? This patchwork, this circle around so I want to end on this note. I will end just as Nigeria's fundamental crisis is primarily that of concept. do want to be a modern democratic state founded on democratic citizenship. Chapter 2 comes in. Or do want to be a multi-ethnic, theocratic, neo-feudal state. Our crisis is a crisis of idea of who we want to be. A modern state built on the concept of citizenship, or a multi-ethnic, neo-religious, theocratic, neo-feudal, multi-ethnic state. Let's think about it.
Thank you, Dr. Please talk back to Doctor, please come and take your seat because there will be some fireworks for you. Can we ask the corporate gathering for please at this stage to come and speak with us? While the president of John National Congress, Professor Benjamin Kaba, should be standing by. Comrade, you have 4 minutes.
I've been here like most people since 8:30, and it's been a very long time. So I have had time to listen and have rethink of some of the things that I have had the opportunity to hear others say here. But despite that, I have always believed, along with my region and my people, that the 1999 Constitution, because after the 1999 Constitution in the Niger Delta, we had a conference. And in that conference, we decided that the 1999 Constitution was one anti-people, that is all Nigerians, in one way or the other, and that it was specifically anti-Niger Delta, that is considering the issue of resource control, resource ownership, resource management, political power, political sharing, and all of that. Now, in the process of that 1999 Constitution, we're now going into about the 2030 will be 30 years. And within that 30 years, I have firmly, solidly stood for change for my region, for my people, and for Nigeria as a whole. In my opinion, most of Nigeria's problem stems from the 1999 Constitution. Nigeria is a country that has had several constitutions, pre-independence constitution, written by people who colonized us for us, in their favor, and then some we seem to have written for ourselves after the after independence, and then of course the 1999 Constitution, which also I've just heard a few minutes ago, that stemmed from the 1979 Constitution. If this is the case, I think that the 1999 Constitution being our problem, we should be truthful to face the clarity of how we're going to go about changing the 1999 Constitution. From my state and my region, and I'm just speaking as a daughter from that region because I have a panel here representing the Niger Delta region. I also have the INC president, who is the representative of my ethnic nationality. As someone that has experienced had quite a bit of experience, the Niger Delta region having our own position. I believe that all Nigerians have their own position. And it is a great thing that the patriots have given us this opportunity. And I'm very proud to say that I also have been a member of the patriots for a very long time. I was brought into it by the late Senator David Dafinoni when I worked for him. And I've come to realize firmly now that the fault of the problems that we are facing in Nigeria today is the problem of the 1999 Constitution. And unless the youths and the women of Nigeria rise up, Falana talked about revolution. When you speak about revolution, people think you want to carry guns. No, you can have revolution of the mind. You can have revolution of how you think. And we need to have very strong revolution to change Nigeria, assuming that we truly want to change Nigeria, because it depends on us if we change Nigeria or we don't change Nigeria. But I want to say here without fear or favor that as long as we have the present personalities that we have in our different states, in politics, all the way up to the federal government, that even this 1999 Constitution, from what I've heard here, even, that we're going to find it difficult, if not impossible, to change the 1999 Constitution. Therefore, as I round up, I am convinced that if we're not able to change the 1999 Constitution to the People's Constitution, irrespective of how we have come about this 1999 Constitution that is so clearly against the country called Nigeria and the people, the suffering people of Nigeria, then Nigeria truly should be able to stand up and begin to look forward to how we're going to go about the plan B of Nigerians and Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please. Can we now have Mr. Awad as Jan Musa Khan? Is he around?
Yes, sir.
That video sound Indian. Careful. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
4 minutes, 4 minutes.
So you need to go that. Okay, sir. Let me start on the well-established, protocol. First, sir, I think this whole conversation we have been doing, it began 1999 when Nigerians felt that there was really need to look at our constitution because there were so many gaps, there are so many contradictions in the constitution. So civil society came together under the umbrella of Citizens Forum for Constitutional Reform. And we went around the whole country from villages to communities, to states, to zonal, to national, to all come up with what we consider contentious issues in our constitution. And these issues, we itemize them number one, citizenship and residency right. Because I think that are disturbing Nigerians. Your father, your grandfather will be born somewhere, and then you'll be told that you are not an indigene. You will be denied access to education, access to everything. We also look at the issues of federalism, looking at how powers are being concentrated, for example, in Abuja. We also look at endangering the language, the contents of the Nigerian constitution. We also look at the physical federalism, which we popularly call resource control. We also look at freedom of association and political parties. We also look at social and economic rights, access to justice and the rule of law. role of the security factors. So these are the key contentious issues that we looked at that time. Now, since 1999, we have been pushing and advocating. Both the executive and the legislature have become very adamant. Secondly, in 2014, President Jonathan constituted national conference. I was privileged to be part of that national conference. Part of that conference. We debated in Nigeria. We tear ourselves into pieces and we, come ourselves back. And we came up with a very beautiful, solid recommendation that if the government was serious, would have addressed so many challenges that we have been talking about today. That report has been put to bed. Now, National Assembly have been going around to do what they call constitutional consultation, public hearing. Many Nigerians believe that it is just to justify the billions that become routine of wasting tax-based money. I believe that it's important that if we are serious about constitutional amendment, we have no reports, recommendation, resolution that are almost the same that we have had in this country. Why can't we really, call the executive, call the legislature, call the necessary stakeholders, and agree to move forward rather than this thing every day we are talking the same thing and no progress. Let me say that Nigerian people are absolutely losing confidence in the elites in this country. And like they say, before it is too late, it is important that the political elites who, when they decide, because all this is not about the common person on the road, it is the elites. They agree, and many of his allies, they agree to move this country forward. It will move forward. But if we want to continue to lament, it will be lamenting, we'll be blowing the grammar, we'll be doing all sorts of things. But unless this elite agree that yes, let's do this and let's move forward, in this country. Other than that, it will be difficult. Elite consensus is what we need in order to move Nigeria forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You don't clap me.
We're getting close, finally just about 4 people. Dr. Larry Orioshi will be on standby as well. Have the president of the Jordan now. Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Professor Benjamin Ogili Mukaba, President, John National Congress, worldwide. If there's any group that is so badly affected by the document, I'll refer to as a satanic document called the 1999 Constitution, should be the job. The first point to note is that we never signed any agreement or treaty in British Crown to surrender our sovereignty. We were forced into what we call Nigeria. That is number one fraud. Moving forward, our sources of livelihood have been taken over by various enactments, the Land Use Decree, Union Industry Act, and several others. My sister talked about lack of resource control, resource management, etc. As we speak, the John Nation is on the path of self-determination. Pray the peaceful process we have started is made possible If not, a revolution will become inevitable. As several fora, we have mentioned the primary conditions that will make the job people to be committed to the Nigerian nation. Before Buhari, I led the job people, and several, when even the British visited us at the jobs, we told them in the first place they brought us to this rubbish, and they have the responsibility of pulling us out. Then secondly, as we move on, we still believe that Nigeria can have a reset of Nigeria if we are ready to do the appropriate things. First and foremost, why not go back to the pre-independence on derivation? Before